just excited as all get out here to get Jim Leyland on the phone. Former Tigers manager from 06 to 13, three-time Major League Manager of the Year, two-time AL champion. The great Jim Leyland. How you doing, Jim? Thanks for the time, my friend.
Okay, guys, you got it.
Thanks, Jim.
Hey Jim, how closely do you follow the Tigers? Do you watch them every night? What do you think of this new regime, Scott Harris, what he's done with this ball club, and are you able to gauge kind of what direction he wants to take this franchise?
Well, I think, you're still going to have to give him some time. I think he's done a very good job up to this point. I think I talked to him in spring training. By the way, yes, I watch him every night because I'm still working for him. So I'm going to be coming up to Detroit to see games here, probably the next homestand. But I think he's done a very good job as far as he hasn't been able to make the big splash yet because it just hasn't been time for that. But he's tried to get a little bit better here and there, and he's picked up a few little pieces to try to get a little bit better, and like Englert, and like he picked up McKinstry, and he got Verlaine, and Maton hasn't done much yet, but he's got some power. He's got a chance to be a decent player. But so I think he's done a good job. He's had some waiver claims, and he told me in spring training, he said, sometime when you're not a real good team yet, you got to try to get just a little bit better in a few different places. And I think he's done that. The club's been in a funk lately, but overall, I think he's done a good job.
Jim, is this whole thing about drafting and developing guys, it just feels like they've been in this rebuild forever?
Well, I think that they felt that they were out of that. I think last year things kind of didn't go very well. People got hurt. People got injured. Some of the guys that picked up didn't do as well as they thought. So, I don't really know if it's a rebuild or not. I mean, I agree with that. There are times when you got to say, hey, we're really not in a rebuild anymore. It's time to step up and do something. Of course, we're waiting kind of on guys like Green and Torkelson. Green's been pretty good so far. Torkelson hasn't really hit stride just yet, but he hit a big home run last night, drove in a winning run. He's a guy that I think's got a chance to be a star, and I think Green does too. So I don't think the cover is near as bad. Plus, they've had a lot of injuries, which is kind of a mystery, really, to be honest with you. To me, I don't really know the answer. We seem to protect pitchers more than ever in the minor leagues, and we seem to have so many guys hurt over the last two seasons. I particularly think that pitchers and players, in my opinion, and most people disagree with me, but I think they do too much. I think there's too much weight work. I just don't think you can play every single day like the players have to play and do all the stuff that they do in the weight room and everything. And I'm not being critical of strength coaches or trainers or anybody else. That's not what I'm doing. The players like to do it. I just think they say, you got to maintain during the season. I just don't think that you can do all the extra stuff that they do in today's game and play every single day. It's hard to play every single day. And you play 150 games, 155 games, 145 games. That's not easy. Everybody says, they travel first class, they get days off. Believe me, it's just not that easy to play every day. And when you're doing a lot of extra stuff on top of that, I just think it takes its toll on the body, but most people disagree with me.
Talking to Jim Leyland, former Tigers manager. Jim, I wanted to go back to something you said because my ears perked up when you talked about Spencer Torkelson. Anytime you've got a number one overall pick, expectations come with that. Quick expectations come with that. You still like this player? You still believe he could be a star?
I like him a lot, but I think one of the things that happened to him is that people just don't realize. I think we probably rushed him a little bit because he hadn't played that much baseball since he signed. I mean, there was the COVID. They were out for quite a while. Then there's some other issues with the games, and I just don't think, he didn't really sign, go to the minor leagues, and then play on a consistent basis for a couple of years, before he got up there. So I think this guy's still got a chance to be a star. I think you saw some signs of that power last night, which I think we've all been a little disappointed. We figured that there'd probably be a few more home runs, and I think there will be. I really like the guy. I really like the player. I think he's a very, very good third baseman or first baseman, and I think he still has a chance to be a star. A lot of those guys during that COVID stuff, they got derailed a little bit, And for some guys, it's taken them longer than maybe some of the other guys who were drafted around the same time.
Jim, I want to talk to you about Riley Green, and the kid looks like he's a ball player, man. Looks like almost like a football player attitude. Goes out there, plays, but he's hurt again, and he's out of the lineup just when he was hitting his stride. And since he went out, the Tigers basically kind of went in a tailspin. What kind of kid is Riley Green, and do you look for him to be able to stay in the lineup long term?
No, I don't think there's any question about it. I think center field is kind of it's a big place. I mean, I know they changed the dimensions a little bit at Comerica Park, but it's a big place. It can take its toll on guys, I think. But I think Riley Green's got a chance to be a very good player, a star player, in my opinion. Maybe not a superstar, but I saw Riley Green in high school. I went with David Chad and Alan Trammell to look at him as a high school kid. And when I saw him, he reminded me of Fred Lynn.
Wow.
The way he stood in the batter's box, he's a left-hand thrower. He's really, really a good player. This was kind of a freak thing, I think, this injury. I certainly hope so. Yeah, I think he's that guy that kind of quietly leads. I don't think he's a big rah-rah guy or anything. I think he's just a very, very young professional player. I mean, he's very professional for a young guy and for the a little bit of experience that he has at the major league level. So I think that he's got a chance to be one heck of a player for a long time. And I still think that him and Torkelson are really going to be good.
I hope so. We're all praying that's going to work. That 2019 draft, Jim, was really something. Adley Rutschman for the Orioles, Bobby Witt for the Royals, Riley Green went 5 to the Tigers, Jung to the Rangers, Alek Manoah, Corbin Carroll, a kid we saw this past weekend. This kid is probably going to win Rookie of the Year for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know he got hit last night and they had a little bench-clearing brawl going, but what did you think of this kid? Did you get the chance to see Corbin Carroll over the weekend? And why does Arizona get this kid at 16? He's going to be a superstar, this kid.
Well, he has a chance to be, but, it's still, no matter how it doesn't always turn out like people think. I mean, there are some things that happen in the draft that, people don't get the first guy taken. It's not always the best player. That's just the way it works. But, for instance, when we took Torkelson, everybody had Torkelson number 1. I mean, that was a given. So it just, you never know who's gonna pop for sure. There's been number 1 draft choices for a lot of teams that have been a total bust over the years since the draft. I mean, people miss on people once in a while, but we certainly didn't miss on Torkelson, and they certainly didn't miss on this guy. And like you say, 15 other teams passed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, Jim, I wanted to ask you about Miguel Cabrera. Just overall thoughts on his career and how you see him this season.
Well, I mean, certainly he's a shadow of himself anymore. We all know that. He's playing out the string this year. It's kind of a really a nice thing to see Miggy playing it out. He doesn't play as much. I think AJ's doing a great job. He gets him in there as much as he can, tries to get him the right matchups. He's still, like I said, he's not the Miguel Cabrera that I remember, obviously, but I still enjoy him. He's still a threat. He just hasn't, I think his physical condition, he hasn't been healthy for, quite a while, to be honest with you. He played for me. He had a broken foot one time. He had a broken bone in his foot and he played. I mean, this guy played all the time. So this guy, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's had a terrific, terrific career. One of the greatest right-hand hitters of all time. One of the greatest players of all time. And sometimes, that last year or so can be a little bit tough. I know Earl Weaver told me when I started managing, he said the toughest job you're ever going to have to do is winding down a superstar. Because it's tough. You remember him as a MVP, a Triple Crown winner, and all of a sudden, Father Time catches up with him, like it did with Willie Mays and a lot of other guys.
Yep.
And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's sad. It's just realistic.
I was in New York. I grew up in Jersey, so I was in New York when Willie Mays played that '73 World Series, and it was against the A's, and the Mets took him 7 games. But I felt awful as a Willie Mays fan back then. The Mets wound up losing that in 7 games. Speaking about the Mets, Skip, I wanted to ask you about two guys that probably are near and dear to your heart, Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. Max goes tonight. It's the Mets and Yankees. They want to run Buck Showalter and the Mets out of town right now. And, of course, the Yankees can't really even get first place in that AL East. Tampa Bay is such a damn good team. What are your thoughts right now on the two 40-year-olds making $100 million and their careers up to now and going forward?
Well, it's funny you say that. They were just in Pittsburgh to play the Pirates, and I went down to the stadium. They texted me. They texted me and asked me to come down and see them. So
cool.
I went down to see them. I had great conversations with them. Had both of them together. We got in conversations about our time with the Tigers, and certainly got complimentary of their careers, and certainly what they did for me when I was manager of the Buccos. They're going to be two of the best of all time. There's no question about that. They are already, and it's just a matter of when they get done and wait their 5 years to get into Cooperstown. Yep. So there doesn't need to be much more said about those two guys. But it was so wonderful to see them, and they were so cordial. They were so complimentary, and they made an old manager feel pretty good, I can tell you that.
I want to ask you this, and this might be a tough one for you to answer, but go back to 2013, your last year with the Tigers, and then Brad Ausmus took over, and they wound up losing to the Orioles. The Orioles and the Tigers at that point kind of fell off the map after that. The Orioles right now are one of the best teams in baseball, and the Tigers are still treading water. I just wanted to ask you, if the Tigers had held those guys over and maybe not broke the team up, J.D. Martinez, and I can go on and on and on with this team, how long could they have been competitive? Can they have been competitive in this last 9 years, holding on to those guys?
Well, they might have been, competitive if they'd have hung out for a little bit longer. But, time catches up with all of you, and certainly the payroll is going to catch up with everybody at some point. If you look at the Mets right now, their payroll may be the highest in baseball or close to it, and they're not really doing very well right now, to be honest with you.
No,
I think they will. Buck Showalter is one of my favorite managers. He's a great manager, but they're struggling. They've had some injuries, and you just never know. They lost Alonso now, and they had the unfortunate thing with the WBC with Diaz. So terrible. Sometimes your best made plans just go astray, and they don't things don't go right. So I'm pulling for Buck and certainly Justin and Scherzer, to get in the thing. But who knows? But we might have stayed competitive for a little bit longer, but you gotta have a turnover, and I think we're all disappointed that it hasn't happened a little sooner than it has. But we felt like going into last year we had a chance to win a division, and things just went crazy. I mean, people got hurt. The Meadows situation, the Rodriguez situation. Baez didn't have a very good year last year. So I mean, sometimes your best plans just don't go right. But I can't disagree. I think it's taken us a little bit longer than we would like, but I think they will definitely get there under Scott Harris and A.J. Hinch's leadership. They're both very, very bright baseball guys, and I think. But at the end of the day, and I say this all the time, and I'm not picking on anybody. At the end of the day, this is about players.
Yep.
Players have to perform, and our players need to perform a little bit better than what they have up to this point. And that's not a criticism; that's just a fact.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. And you mentioned Javier Baez, Jim. How would you manage this guy? I mean, it's like he's a completely different player than the one they expected when they signed him last year, and he's really given them not much. And again, not a criticism. It's just they need this guy to be a certain type of player, and they just the Tigers haven't gotten that from him.
Well, he was surrounded by a few more veteran players, even though they were young. I guess we could call them veteran when they were with the Cubs. This guy was a shortstop on a world championship team. This guy is a huge talent. And I know sometimes people get tired of hearing about that, but this guy is a very, very gifted baseball player. And, whether it's just taking him time to settle into Detroit, or maybe, the expectations are so much for him to just take charge of the club. They had other guys on that Chicago club like Rizzo and people like that could carry the load as much as Javi could, and maybe he's put too much pressure on himself, to carry the team, because this guy is really, really a good baseball player. He's a terrific talent, the ball jumps off his bat. You know, when he makes contact, stays in the strike zone, the ball jumps off his bat as good as anybody. And he's just got all kind of ability. So, you know, hopefully he's going to get more comfortable. Hopefully, you know, Torque and Green will pick him up a little bit, his spirits up a little bit, because this club's, they got some talent. There's no question about that. So I think we're still waiting for Javi to be Javi, but, you know, who knows? Sometimes it just takes in a change of scenery. He's not the best for everybody. I don't know. Was it the best for him? But I'll have to find out. But this guy's a very, very big-time talent.
Jim Leyland joins us, former Tigers manager, of course, took us to the World Series in 2006 to 2012. That long layoff, we talk about it all the time here, and I think it short-circuited what could have been a really special time here in Detroit, Jim. I wanted to ask you just about that. I know I probably asked you 100 times, but how much did that affect the team, the long layoff?
Well, I don't know. You know, I think you got to be careful when you look for reasons that, you know, you didn't win it. Certainly we had a good enough team to win it. I won't say we were better than those teams, but I will say we were certainly good enough to win the World Series. We didn't do it, so shame on us. We have no excuses. We have no excuses. And, you know, I don't know. I think it does affect hitters when you're off that long. I don't think there's any question about it. And I think the other thing is when you're off that long as a hitter, it affects you naturally. And then I think when you figure, you know, when you're in the World Series against a team, there's probably going to be pretty good pitchers against you. Obviously, they wouldn't be there. So I think that piled up on us too. We just didn't do anything offensively in either season, in either series.
Yeah.
And it was very disappointing to all of us, you know. And, you know, for whatever reason, we tried everything. We tried bringing up our instructional league team to play against them and to try to keep the team going. But, you know, things like that just didn't work. We tried to get them live at bats. We tried everything. You know, we did pitching, fielding, and practice over at Ford Field because it was wet and cold there. And we tried everything. It just didn't work.
That 06 ALCS against the Athletics is, I'll never forget that. I couldn't make it to Game 4. My wife had to take my seat. It was a Michigan football game I had to cover that day. But I don't think I've ever seen. I still have that game on my DVR. I'm one of those guys that'll keep a game free forever. And I get the chills every time I watch that. How the stadium looked. You guys walking around and just smiling like you were little boys again. I'll never ever get that out of my mind. Where does that rank in your long, beautiful career?
Well, my whole time in Detroit ranks right up there with my entire career. I'm very proud of it. I think it's, you know, we didn't win the World Series. I mean, it's not that easy to win the World Series, but I think those years that I was there, I think I was fortunate to be there during some of the greatest times in the history of Tiger baseball. I think our consistency was good. I think a lot of people forget. Most people remember that we didn't win the World Series, but I think a lot of people forget that we did go to the postseason 4 times. Actually, 5 times if you count Game 163 against Minnesota.
Yep.
We did go there, and we did get to 2 World Series, and we never lost. We never lost in the first round of the playoffs. In those times that we got there, when I was there, we never lost in the first round. We never lost the division series. I mean, we beat the Yankees a couple times.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it wasn't like, you know, we were a bust. I mean, we did play pretty good in the postseason. In the first postseason in 2006. We got to beat. We won. We got beat the first game and won 7 in a row after that postseason. So, I think it was one of the best times in Tiger baseball. I think, the attendance proved that. I think everybody was excited. You know, I still apologize. We didn't win the World Series, but I thought we did pretty well.
Hey, Jim, last one. I want to ask you, when you watch baseball with the pitch clock, do you enjoy the game? What are your just thoughts on just watching baseball and how it's played now with the pitch clock and everything else?
Well, I love the pitch clock. I don't think there's any question about that. I think it's great for the game. I like the no-shift rule. I think that's great for the game. I'm not so fond of the 2 times over to first base is all you can throw over without being penalized if you don't retire the guy. They call it a balk. I'm not so fond of that one. But I really like it. It's different. I don't really enjoy, and once again, people say, well, he's just old school. I'm not old school. I'm old, but I'm not old school. But I don't really care about all the metrics that they talk about. I don't really care how far the ball went. If it's a home run to me, it's a home run.
Us too.
I don't care how hard it went off. I don't care how hard it was off the bat.
God, I love it.
That's good for that's maybe good for judging players in the minors or a free agent kid or something. The ball jump. But when you're down on the field and you watch batting practice and you watch the games, when the ball jumps off a guy's bat. You don't need to have it measured.
You don't need exit velo.
You don't need the exit velo.
Yeah, right. I think, you know that, but that's good for, I think that's probably interesting to some fans, maybe people that like that kind of stuff. I particularly don't really care about it. And my only thing that I really don't like about the game, I shouldn't say I don't like it. It's just the thing that's different for me is, and I think they're starting to get back to it, starting pitchers have to pitch more innings.
Yeah.
I get tired of the bullpen usage all the time. And I'm talking about not the Tigers. I'm talking about all over baseball.
Tampa Bay.
I just don't understand when guys pitch 4 1/3 or 5 innings and they leave the game 3-2 up or down, and everybody said, "Oh, he did a great job. He kept his team in the game." To me, that's not a good job, giving up 3 runs in 5 innings, and you only pitch 5 innings and you got 100 pitches. That, to me, I think starting pitchers, have to extend themselves a little bit more, get some more innings to give that bullpen a break. I'm just not a big fan of as much bullpen usage as it has been in the last several years.
Hey, Jim, last one for me, and this is the most important one. Did you have Arcangelo in the Belmont?
No, I did not. I didn't even watch the Belmont, to be honest with you. In fact, I thought that I didn't watch it. I almost kind of forgot about it because I was talking about it early in the day or the day before, and they were talking about, because of the Canadian fires, that could possibly be canceled or something.
Yeah.
They were talking about that. So really, I did. I did watch the Derby, and I watched the Preakness, but I did not. To be honest, I didn't watch the Belmont.
It was a hell of a race, and the first female trainer. No, I didn't have her. You know what? I should have. He was supplemented for $50,000 to get in that race. He was lightly raced. He's a New York horse. They bought him for only $35,000. What a story! What a great story.
Yeah. Well, I think they got Sunday Silence at one time for $17,000.
Yep, I know. Now he's the big man back then. Jim, always great talking to you.
Right.
Miss seeing you at Hazel
Such
Park.
a pleasure.
Okay, guys.
Miss seeing you at Hazel Park, though.
Great
We'll
place.
talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.